All right, everyone, we're going to go ahead and get started. First off, thank you so much for coming out this evening and welcome to Genealogy and You. Before we get started, just one quick note, please keep all your questions until the end of the presentation. You can ask your questions in either the chat box or the Q&A box because I'll be monitoring them both. And at the end of the presentation, I'll read your questions out loud. So without further ado, I'm going to turn things over to our speaker for the evening, which is our town historian, Michael Maring. Michael?
Hey, thank you, Chelsea. Good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining me back in my home office here again. Tonight, we're here to talk about genealogy and you, right? This is something I think a lot of people get interested in, and it kind of takes over their lives as it has done so with me. Just a little background, I guess, before we get started, right? I was introduced to the world of genealogy about 15 years ago. And basically just started like most people with like a handful of names, had my grandparents' names and a couple of great-grandparents' names and some ideas of where these people lived and where they kind of ethnically came from, and didn't really know what else to do. So I did what most other people do, and I signed up for Ancestry.com and got to work. And after going through countless census records, directories, immigration records, all these different items that they have on these websites that we're going to go through today, I basically started to find out who these people were, and then effectively kind of who I was in some way, shape, or form. After, nearly a decade on and off, right? Just that's a great piece of advice from the get-go. Take your time with this, don't rush. They're kind of not going anywhere, so to say. But, I was able to trace my family and family names back to very small towns across Europe. And I got mixed up in the craze of the DNA testing, which was a lot of fun. The whole world opens up to you. And there are relatives all over the world that I was able to connect with and gain some information from. So this is a really exciting kind of project to undertake. It's very eye-opening to learn about these people and learn about family members that we don't really know too much about, or find out some information about somebody we know a lot about, and then really just learn about what their life was like. So I'm going to go ahead right now and share my screen here because I have a kind of site that we put together for you guys. Let's see here, I'm sharing too many things here. Okay, there we go. Okay, right, so hopefully we can see the screen going on here right now. This is on our website, so you'll be able to check out all this as well. We're going to go through a bunch of sources, right? And the sources I have compiled here are all free, which is wonderful, right? Because genealogy is usually very, it's synonymous with being expensive. And there are some really good genealogists out there, and they are worth every penny. However, we're going to work with the free tools, all right? Because after tonight, you are your family's official family historian. So the best site, I believe, this gets you your best, this is the best thing out there in the world of genealogy, and it's the website FamilySearch. It is the best for searching and for hosting a family tree. And it's, again, completely free. So you're able to search the records there. And even if your family, for some reason, you can't find anything on there, you could still build a family tree on there, which is great. Again, completely free. It's a massive, massive collection of records that they continuously add to, pretty much monthly, I would say. Very user-friendly site. It allows you to hook up with family members who are also building family trees. On FamilySearch, for example, myself, I came across a distant relative, something like a fourth cousin or something like that, who was still living in Italy. And she was able to actually get me some records from my family, and actually found us an address of my great-grandfather, which was very, very cool to see, that his home is still standing. So now I got to take a trip to Italy. But back to this, really my stuff is not too important, right? But it's a great chance to discuss these things, right? And keeping in mind in a search, right? And this is a big mistake people make when we do genealogical searches. We as, we know these people and, we've known them as, Joe or Mary or whatever it may be. And we want to stick to that. But that may not be always the case, right? So, for example, right, when I did some research on my family, my grandmother specifically, I always knew her as Julie. She was always Grandma Julie, Grandma Julie. However, I didn't find out until way later in life that her name wasn't even Julie. Her name was Angelina. And that made the search a million times easier because on census records, that's how she was listed. On birth records, that's how she was listed. And it was much easier to find. So be prepared when you do your searching. Be prepared for misspelling of last names. Be prepared for birth dates being off by a year or so, right? Plus or minus. And nicknames. There are so many nicknames people used to go by. I don't get what it is or why they did it or why they even stopped. But the nicknames are crazy. There are so many times I would research for people and come across, women named Mammy, right? That's not really a name you hear too much. And it's usually a short for Margaret or Mary, but that's how they would go, right? On some of the records, right? With a nickname. So be prepared for that. On FamilySearch, they also allow you to search just by initials, which is really great. Because if you have a complex last name that you're looking for, you'll be able just to search by initials. And you can add all these other filters in to narrow it down as well. Again, most important to remember on a lot of these documents that you will research, your family members, your ancestors, they never filled them out. They did not write on them. A lot of issues we see today in genealogy is that everything was phonetic. So however the census taker heard the name, that's how they wrote it. So best piece of advice as it comes to searching right away is be open to a lot of things, right? If birth dates match up, if a brother or sister's name matches up, but just the name is spelt wrong, take a better look at it and make sure you keep an eye on it just in case, okay? We've also attached a link from FamilySearch themselves with different tips and tricks on using their system. And again, very user-friendly. And the benefit is this. You could search from records from all over the world, and they're all free, right? They have records from the US, they have records from Europe, they have records from a growing population record from Latin America, right? They have some Asian records, some African records, but you could get anything you are looking for. If they don't have it on their website, FamilySearch is a program run by the Mormons, right? So you can actually contact them and they may have some information or some microfilm, the old school microfilm on file, right, in relation to a certain town. A friend of mine from work, he actually contacted them before COVID hit and got some records out of Cuba that they had. They didn't index them yet online, but he was able to go visit their building down in Union City, and he went through them and kind of found some interesting stuff that he was looking for. Another benefit is if you find anything on the website, the records, you could save them. Okay, you could download them, keep them personally, email them to whoever you want. You could print them out. And again, it's for free. Okay. When it comes to the Family Tree app on there, you could also add images or sources as they call them. Just upload them and you have everything right there. Okay. And again, aside from the searchable kind of records, they also have a growing book collection. So you'd be able to search maybe a family name or a town, right? The more information you have, the better, okay? So there's a lot of good stuff on there. The next site I really like is Chronicling America. It's put together by the Library of Congress, and it is a collection of newspapers from across the United States from 1792 until 1963. Very easy to use. You could type in a family member's name, hit search and see what comes up. You could type in a last name, hit search, see what comes up. If you know they only lived in New Jersey, you could narrow it down by the state, right? Something I always tell people to keep in mind when you search a newspaper article, you can find a lot of details about people, good and bad, right? There is always some weird stuff that we could find out about relatives from long ago, but it's part of the story of who you are. Again, right, I really like this database because you search for people, for places, events, right? If any of you follow us on Facebook, you would see that we do a lot of today in North Bergen history. We use this website to get some of that information. We also use the Jersey Journal archives, which could be signed up through the Jersey City Library, and you get access to that, again, completely free. Again, it's a really fun database because you never know what you might find out, right? My grandfather, I found out he won a radio flyer wagon in 1936 for selling the most subscriptions to the Hudson Dispatch. So I think, that was really cool. I got to show my dad that, and he was really excited. Another great website, if your family immigrated, right? When we're a nation of immigrants, so most people can use this website, right? Are the entry points for the Port of New York. So there's 2 sites to use here. Castle Garden, their website has about 11 million records for immigrants that entered New York between 1820 and 1892. Then you have Ellis Island's database, which has 65 million records, okay, completely digitized for you to search. And that's basically anybody who entered the United States through New York from 1892 until 1954. So on these records, right, on both sets of records, you can learn a lot of things about people. You can learn about the name of the ship they traveled on, the dates that they left, the port of departure, and when they arrived, right? Most ships would have taken about 7 to 10 days to get here. And then you find out some other stuff. Who paid for their trip, right? Where was the last place they lived? Did they leave anybody behind, right? Who were they going to, and an address of where they were going to. And then you get some information, their heights and their builds, eye color, there's all really cool stuff on here that can tell you a lot about what it was like coming over to the United States in the turn of the 20th century. Now, I worked on Ellis Island before I got into teaching, and I personally, this scene, if you're not familiar with this is from The Godfather Part 2, and I hate this scene more than anything else in the world. One of the major myths about immigration through Ellis Island and immigration in general is that they changed my family's name there. Now I have some bad news for you. They didn't. Okay, that would have never happened on Ellis Island. It's important to remember that. All the records that came with these immigrants were completed in the port of departure. So again, it goes back to that phonetic spelling. So if somebody misheard the name, they would have spelt it wrong. That document would have came and went to Ellis Island, and then one of the officers would have just read the name, and then that would have been it. Right? Are there going to be spelling errors? Absolutely. There are tons of spelling errors on these things, but that did not mean that is the original name. Okay. It's also important to remember they would have never changed a Franz to a Frank or Giuseppe to Joseph. That modification came way later and usually by the choice of the person. Again, be aware that when you use the databases on there, you also should use ethnic specific names. Okay. No such thing as John coming out of some places. You want to use Jan or Janos, right? If you're looking at Eastern European names, good luck, right? Those can be very tricky to look up. Jewish names, right? Or people of Jewish faith would have traveled under Yiddish names. So it's very, interesting to look and search for those and very rewarding when you're able to find them. Again, on these websites, try searching by the last name only. You could do partial name searches, okay? Again, take it from me, my last name is Maring. It's 2 syllables, should be pretty easy to find. And over the time of my searching, I found about 15 different spellings of the last name. And you gotta give each spelling a chance, right? You gotta see where they go and where they're coming from and all these different things to make sure it's not someone you're looking for, but these are some good websites to use. Another project to work with is USGenWeb. They've been going at this for 25 years. Their collection is searchable by state and by county, and it's completely volunteer run, which is really great. So you could contact them in case you run into some trouble. Now, this site offers information about people, places, cemeteries, birth and death records, obituaries, and so on. So this is a good site. They have a lot of material. If you're looking, and again, I got to give them a shout out because they're really awesome what they do. The Hudson County Genealogical Society, they do a great job. They have a great collection and databases all related to Hudson County. They have yearbooks. They have, certain club meeting data and all this really interesting stuff for real local groups. They host monthly events highlighting different topics related to understanding and searching genealogical records. And they're really helpful. The people there are all very nice. And you could also become a member. They do take a yearly fee. I think it's like $35. And you can access, their discussion boards and some services they offer. So it's a must if you're going to research your family, especially if they were big time in Hudson County. This is a great website to use. Google Books is another great one, right? It's completely free. Even Google searches will work, right? You'll find this unbelievable amount of resources. In general, the books option is a great resource for doing genealogical research, right? Many genealogies, right? Family history books, biographies are cataloged by Google. And even if you're very lucky, right, you might find images or sketches of your ancestors, if you're lucky enough. Again, we have some of the digital collections, the genealogy of Hudson County from 1917, Hudson County Today from 1924, the genealogies of Hudson, Essex, and Bergen County. It's 2 volumes. We have those. And there is a lot of names, right? There are a lot of old school North Bergen names, old school Hudson County names that are in there. So it is interesting, to just go on Google, fire your name in there, Google Books, and see what comes up. Again, I would suggest simply doing a last name search first, see what comes up, and then plug in maybe a first name. Again, if you aren't lucky to find a biography on a family member, you might just find out important facts about the location and eras that they lived in. And when doing genealogy work, you can never have enough information, right? There is nothing that won't help you when doing this type of search. You then have also the National Genealogical Society. These guys are really good. If you need more resources, right? Maybe it's something ethnically specific you're looking for. They have 18 free websites to use in there. Some which we discussed above, but they could aid you in your search. So the National Genealogical Society is very helpful as well. And then your last resource, I guess, let's talk about this first. Let's get to this before our last resource. This worked really well for the young genealogist, and this is something big for families to do, right? You might not get lucky on these sites. You may not find any information. Don't give up, right? And congratulations, you are now the official family historian. Welcome to the club. Being a family historian, right? It's time to start recording the family's history, memories, stories, and so on. But again, most people have no idea where to start. What are you going to do? Just bombard and kind of trap grandma and grandpa in a room and hope they have answers, right? Family History Daily, a great genealogy blog, came up with 100 questions every family historian should ask their relatives. And I linked it here. It's 100 questions to ask people. And again, it's a downloadable PDF. So if they don't live nearby, you could shoot them an email, right? If they're old school, you could print it out and mail it to them, have them fill it out. Again, you might be thinking I'm crazy by doing this, right? But people will really get a kick out of this. The questionnaire will actually makes me think of the great genealogy quote, right? Genealogy, where you confuse the dead and irritate the living, right? Because now you're going to give this information, these packets out to people and hope they fill it out, and you're going to hassle them until they do. Some of the questions are simple. What's person's name, date of birth, occupation, general information. But they get interesting, like, some of the questions were you named after somebody, right? What do you remember about great-grandparents, right? And there's a lot of other personal questions, where did you meet your spouse, right? What was it like becoming a parent? What is the memory of childhood? All these different great questions. And in my experience, people want to answer these things, right? And we're running into the holiday season here. And this is a time where people are going to get together. And this is a great way to start getting information from people. Now, will all 100 questions help you find your 8th great grandparent? I'm going to say no, definitely not. Okay. But it's going to set a foundation for any and all research that will come in the future. Right. So the more information you have about people, the better. And it's good to get it from people, you know, not to sound morbid, but it's great to get it from people who are still around. That could give you some fill in some blanks for you. And again, I bring this up because too many times when I'm working with people searching for their past, there's always the moment, you know, when they say, I should have asked more questions. I should have asked this one more questions. I should have asked that one more questions, right? And it's something most people attempting genealogy research will face one day, right? Is that they didn't ask grandma or grandpa enough questions about their childhood. Because again, these are the people that are kind of we're going to have to look beyond them, and they might have had the last pieces of information. So if they're around, it's good to get it now, or jot it down if you remember it right now. Again, these 100 questions are a way to get family members to preserve your history now, right? It may not be a complete story, but it's a better chunk than when you started, right? Now you could use all 100 questions or narrow it down, right? Or at least let people know they don't have to answer all of them, right? And that all information can help, right? Now, this one here, a lot of people ask me about the DNA testing, and I say go for it, right? It's a lot of fun. I've done both of them. There's multiple ones now. I did the 2 big ones. I did 23andMe, and I did Ancestry's DNA test. It's, like I said, a lot of fun, but it really doesn't give you anything to research, right? You won't find any records or names of ancestors attached to anything. You'll get a breakdown of like your ethnic backgrounds. And sometimes that's very surprising, right? I did it, my wife has done it. I have coworkers that have done it. And everybody finds something that doesn't make sense, right? Something that like, oh my gosh, I didn't know I was this. Oh, I wonder where this came from. Personally on mine, I got Scandinavian, and all my research and family stories and stuff pointed to just being, Irish, Italian, and German, right? So there's this lingering history in the DNA, okay, that you could find. You'll be shocked to see how many distant cousins you have out there, right? Most of them are like you're sharing your 4th great grandparent, 4th cousin once removed or something like that. But again, both sites offer their own version of a family tree based on the DNA results, and that's kind of cool. They both offer mapping showing where you might have originated from, where your DNA comes out of. 23andMe also gives you the Neanderthal count, which I think is funny to see, right? And then it also gives locations of family members in their system, other people who have taken the DNA tests. And the good thing about it now is, around this holiday season, they're usually on sale. You usually get a pretty decent deal on them. So, if that's something you want to, explore, it's a great option to take a look at now. And then your last resource is this handsome guy right here. All right. My wife thinks I'm handsome, right? But I've been a history nerd my whole life, right? I've worked in genealogy for several years, and now I'm in the high school for 5 periods a day, doing my acting there for those guys. And then I'm here with the Historical Society every month. We got something going on. But if you ever have any questions about family research or need assistance looking for records or information, please reach out to us, right? Reach out to me through the Historical Society's Facebook page, and I'll be glad to kind of help you out in any way, shape I can. So again, right, as the holidays draw near, right, family gatherings are going to start up. Get everyone involved with your search, right? Because it's their story too. It's their history as well, right? Good luck with your searching, right? Happy hunting, right? And remember, you're a part of a much larger story, right? And make sure you're aware of the chapters that came before you, so the chapters that come after you make sense, all right? There's some good links here. These are all, pay links, but, they're still good to use. Now I will stop sharing. If anybody has any questions, I'll gladly answer them, right? any tips or tricks you might need or anything like that, happy to help you out, guys.
So just as a reminder, you can put your questions in either the chat box or the Q&A box. And while you guys are writing your questions, I also want to share a library resource with you related to genealogy. The New Jersey State Library has a subscription to Heritage Quest, which is owned by Ancestry as well. So if anyone doesn't want to spend the money to buy an Ancestry subscription, you can go to the New Jersey State Library's website, and we have a link to that on the North Bergen Public Library's website. So you can go straight through the North Bergen website, and you can use Heritage Quest instead.
Awesome.
And if anyone has any questions, you can go ahead and put them in the chat box or the Q&A box. I've got a question for you, Michael. What is your favorite of the paid resources and the unpaid resources? Do you have a specific favorite?
Unpaid is definitely the FamilySearch. That is hands down my favorite one. There's so much stuff on there, and the family tree builder, it's a very nice. It's not clunky or anything like that. It's easy to read. It's easy to edit. So that's something I really like a lot. Paid wise, I think well, actually, you know what? No, I'm going to take that back. MyHeritage is my favorite of the paid sites because they offer a photo coloring app. So you can take black and white photos and they will add color to them, which is pretty cool. You find a picture of, a great grandparent, and now all of a sudden it's in color, and it adds a whole new level to it. So I would say MyHeritage is another great system to use for that.
Perfect, thank you. We do have a question in the chat. Can you explain what you just said about the link with New Jersey link to Heritage? Were you talking about the Heritage Quest link that I was talking about, or the MyHeritage that Michael was talking about? The Heritage Quest, okay. So the New Jersey State Library, which serves every citizen in New Jersey, owns a subscription to Heritage Quest. And Heritage Quest is ultimately owned by Ancestry.com. So they have a ton of the same resources that you can get through subscription to Ancestry.com. So because you live in New Jersey, you don't need to pay for Heritage Quest. You can just go to the New Jersey State Library's website and click on their MyHeritage Quest link, and you'll be able to access Heritage Quest's resources. If you don't know how to get to the New Jersey State Library website, that's fine. You can just go to the North Bergen Public Library's website and go under our resources page, and we have a link to that as well. You can just click on our link and it will take you right there. If anyone has any other questions, you can go ahead and put them into the chat or the Q&A. Michael, what is your favorite resource to use to find obituaries?
Okay, so obituaries, usually I will use the Jersey Journal archives for that one, mainly because most of my family, passed away in Hudson County. So they would have the listing in there. Outside of that, I would say the Chronicling America has a ton of issues, especially if your family was in, say, Essex County, or down, I think it would be Middlesex County, down where Perth Amboy is. They have a ton of information out of there. So I think those are two good resources. But again, Ancestry is probably the one with the most obituaries, or at least death records to use.
Okay, fantastic, thank you. So it looks like we don't have any more questions in the chat or the Q&A. So I'd like to end by saying thank you for everyone for coming out tonight to this wonderful presentation. And a big thank you to you, Michael, for coming and giving this presentation for us.
No worries. Thanks for having me. I hope everybody enjoys, and good luck on your searching, guys.
All right. Have a very good evening, everyone. Good night.
Good night.